social media to children and teens on social media. We really appreciate your being here, Mr. Massari. Your response to our invitation is very welcome. I want to thank you and your team for your cooperation, and I want to thank the ranking member, Senator Blackburn, for being such a really close partner in this work, as well as our chairwoman, Maria Cantwell, and our ranking member, Roger Wicker, for their support as well, and all the members of our committee for being so engaged on this topic. As a note to start, I understand Mr. Massari has a hard stop at 5, so I'm going to be strict on the 5-minute time limit. I know everybody thinks of me as a very nice guy, but I'm going to be ruthless, at least attempting to be ruthless, as best any senator can be with his colleagues. In this series of hearings, we've heard some pretty powerful and compelling evidence about the dangers of big tech to children's health, well-being, and futures. Our nation is in the midst of a teen mental health crisis. Social media didn't create it, but it certainly fanned the flames, and it's fueled it. And if anybody has any doubts about the potential harmful effects of social media, the Surgeon General yesterday issued a powerful report about the implications of social media, as well as video gaming and other technologies, on teen mental health. And that's part of the reason we're here. The hearings have shown that social media, in particular big tech, actually fans those flames with addictive products and sophisticated algorithms that can exploit and profit from children's insecurities and anxieties. And our mission now is to do something about it. We're here to do more than shake fists. We really are seeking solutions. And we welcome the voices and the vision of big tech itself in that effort. I believe that the time for self-policing and self-regulation is over. Some of the big tech companies have said, trust us. That seems to be what Instagram is saying in your testimony. But self-policing depends on trust. The trust is gone. What we need now is independent researchers, objective overseers, not chosen by big tech, but from outside, and strong, vigorous enforcement of standards that stop the destructive, toxic content that now too often is driven at kids and takes them down rabbit holes to dark places. The day before this hearing, Instagram announced a set of proposals. These simple time management and parental oversight tools they could have been announced years ago. They weren't, and in fact, these changes fall way short of what we need, in my view. Many of them are still in testing, months away. The rollouts will be done at some point in the future. We don't know exactly when. And unfortunately, these announced changes leave parents and kids with no transparency into the black box algorithms, the 600-pound gorillas in those black boxes that drive that destructive and addictive content to children and teens. No effective warning or notice to parents when their children are spiraling into eating disorders, bullying, or self-harm. Nothing more than the bare minimum controls for parents, and of course, no real accountability to assure parents and kids that these safeguards will work. I'm troubled with the lack of answers on Instagram Kids. Once again, this pause looks more like a public relations tactic brought on by our hearings, just as these announced changes seem to be brought on by these proceedings announced just hours before your testimony. And we need real, serious review of those changes. The magnitude of these problems requires bold and broad solutions and accountability, which has been lacking so far. Facebook's own researchers have been warning management, including yourself, Mr. Massari, for years about Instagram's harmful impacts on teens' mental health and well-being, and the whistleblower who sat exactly where you are told us about those documents, about the research, the studies, which showed that Facebook knew, it did the research, it had the studies, but it continued to profit from the destructive content because it meant more eyeballs, more advertising, more dollars. Given those warnings, it seems inexcusable that Facebook waited a decade to begin, and only to begin, figuring out that Instagram needed parental controls. In the past 2 months, this subcommittee has heard horrifying stories from countless parents whose lives and their children's lives have been changed forever. One father from Connecticut wrote to me about his daughter who developed severe anxiety in high school because of constant pressure from Instagram. That pressure became so intense, following her home from school, following her everywhere she went, following her into her bedroom in the evening, that she attempted suicide. Fortunately, her parents stepped in and sought help and found a recovery program, but the experience continues to haunt her and her family. Facebook's researchers call this fall into that kind of dark rabbit hole a perfect storm. That's the quote, perfect storm, created by its own algorithms that exacerbate downward spirals harmful to teens. Again, Facebook knows about the harm. It's done the research, the studies, the surveys repeatedly. It knows the destructive consequences of the algorithms and designs. It knows teens struggle with addiction and depression on Instagram. But that data has been hidden, like the algorithms themselves. Just yesterday, that Surgeon General's report provided powerful documentation on how social media can fan those flames and fuel the fires of the mental health crisis that we face among teens. And it signals that something is terribly wrong. What really stuns me is the lack of action. In fact, just within the last 2 months. 2 months ago, this subcommittee heard testimony from Facebook's global head of safety, Ms. Antigone Davis. At that time, I showed her the pro-eating disorder rampant on Instagram. I demonstrated through an experiment how its algorithms will flood a teen with triggering and toxic messages in just hours after we created an account. This was glorification of being dangerously underweight, tips on skipping meals, images we could not, in good conscience, show in this room. It's been 2 months, so we've repeated our experiment. On Monday, we created another fake account for a teenager and followed a few accounts promoting eating disorders, and again, within an hour, all of our recommendations promoted pro-anorexia and eating disorder content. 2 months ago, the global head of public safety for Facebook was put on notice by this subcommittee. Nothing has changed. It's all still happening. And in the meantime, more lives have been broken, real lives, with real families and futures, and you hear from yourself. We all know that if Facebook saw a significant threat to its growth or ad revenue, it wouldn't wait 2 months to take action. So why does it take months for Facebook to act when our kids face danger, when time is not on our side? Time is not on our side. So no wonder parents are worried. In fact, parents are furious. They don't trust Instagram, Google, TikTok, and all of their big tech fears, and by the way, this is not an issue limited to Instagram or Facebook. Parents are asking, what is Congress doing to protect our kids? And the resounding bipartisan message from this committee is legislation is coming. We can't rely on trust anymore. We can't rely on self-policing. It's what parents and our children are demanding. Senator Blackburn and I are listening to them, as are other members of committee. We are working together. Your proposal for an industry body asks parents yet again to trust us. We'll do it ourselves, but self-regulation relies on that trust that has been squandered. We need to make sure that the responsibility is on big tech to put a safe product on the market. You can't be allowed to conceal when products are harming kids, so the first imperative is transparency. We need real transparency into these 800-pound gorilla black box algorithms and addictive designs. And disclosure has to include independent, qualified researchers who will then tell the story to the public. We need to update our children's privacy laws. Congress should pass the Bipartisan Children's and Teens Online Privacy Protection Act, authored by Senator Markey, who's here today. I'm proud to be working with him on updating and expanding it. Parents and children need more power and more effective tools to protect themselves on the platform. And that's why Senator Blackburn and I are working on a framework, and we've made good progress to enable that protection. There really should be a duty of care. The United Kingdom has imposed it. It's part of the law there. Why not here? That ought to be part of the framework of legislation that we're considering. Section 230 reform. You make a reference to it in your testimony. The days of absolute, broad, unique immunity for big tech are over. And finally, enforcement. State authorities, federal authorities, law enforcement has to be rigorous and strong. So I hope that we will begin the effort of working together, but one way or the other, this committee will move forward. And again, I thank you for being here. I thank all of my colleagues for attending, and I ask for remarks by the ranking member, Senator Blackburn.
And thank you, Senator Blumenthal, and welcome to everyone. We are appreciative that you are here today, Mr. Mosseri. We are grateful for your time and for your testimony. I do want to thank Senator Blumenthal and his team for the work. This is the 5th hearing that we have held dealing with the issues around big tech and the invasions of privacy, the lack of data security, the need for Section 230 reforms, and looking very directly at what these platforms, social media platforms, the effect, the negative and adverse effect that they are having on our children. I will tell you that today I am just a little bit frustrated. I'm frustrated because this is now the 4th time in the past 2 years that we have spoken with someone from Meta, as you are now calling yourselves, and I feel like the conversation continues to repeat itself ad nauseum. And when I go back home to Tennessee, I know that the people there, lots of moms and dads and teachers and pediatricians, they share this frustration because they continue to hear from you that change is coming, that things are going to be different, that there are going to be more tools in the toolbox, that kids are going to be safer online, that privacy is going to be protected, and that data is going to be secure. But guess what? Nothing changes. Nothing. The chairman just talked about what happened with Ms. Davis when she came in and how we pointed all of this out specifically of what we had found. And yet yesterday, what happened? The exact same thing. So I hope that you appreciate the frustration that the American public feels, that they appreciate what the internet can do for them in bringing the world closer. But the applications that you are pushing forward, the social media, the addictive nature, the way this affects children, there is such a frustration that you turn a blind eye toward taking responsibility and accepting accountability for your platform, how you are structured, and how you use the data on these children. Yesterday at 3 a.m., which is midnight in the Silicon Valley, you released a list of product updates that you said would raise the standard for protecting teens and supporting parents online. And I'm not sure what hours you all keep in California, but where I'm from, the middle of the night is when you drop news that you don't want people to see. And maybe you thought that doing it in this manner would keep members of this subcommittee from seeing it right away and from raising concerns, because while I'm sure you know that we fully share the goal of protecting kids and teens online, what we aren't sure about is how the half measures you've introduced are going to get us to the point where we need to be to truly protect teens and young adults online. For example, we know that social media is an integral part of teens' daily lives. According to the Mayo Clinic, 97% of teens between ages 13 and 17 use a social media platform, and 45% say they are online almost constantly. So while telling teens to take a break might seem helpful on the face of things, it's probably not going to get most teenagers to stop doing what they're doing and take a break. Educational tools for parents can be helpful, but frankly, I'm more concerned about the things we know kids and teens are hiding from their parents. We know that Facebook and Instagram have encouraged teens to use secondary accounts and told them to be authentic. And we all remember what it was like to be a teenager. So while parents might gain some insight into what their teens do on their main accounts, what do they do about the accounts they don't even know exist? The ones that Instagram is encouraging them to create. And Instagram announced in July that it would default all teens onto private accounts when they sign up for the site. Yet just yesterday, my team created an account as a 15-year-old girl, and it defaulted to public. So, while Instagram is touting all these safety measures, they aren't even making sure that these safety measures are in effect. For me, this is a case of too little too late, because now there is bipartisan momentum both here and in the House to tackle these problems we are seeing with big tech. As Senator Blumenthal said, we are working on children's privacy, online privacy, data security, and Section 230 reforms. This is the appropriate time to pass a national consumer privacy bill, as well as kid-specific legislation to keep minors safe online. We also need to give serious thought to how companies like Facebook and Instagram continue to hide behind Section 230's liability shield when it comes to content like human trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking. Despite Congress speaking clearly to this issue when we passed FOSTA and SESTA a few years ago, Mr. Masseri, there is a lot of work for us to do to improve the online experience and to protect our children and our grandchildren. I think it's best if we do this together, and I look forward to hearing your ideas and your testimony today. Thank you for your appearance.
Thanks, Senator Blackburn. I'm pleased to introduce Adam Mosseri. He spent over 11 years at Meta and oversees all functions of the Instagram app, including engineering, product management, and operations. Mr. Mosseri, the floor is yours.
Right. Apologies. Oh, my apologies. Thank you, Senator. Chairman Blumenthal, Ranking Member Blackburn, members of the subcommittee. I'm Adam Mosseri, and I've served as the head of Instagram since 2018. And over the last few months, the subcommittee has held a number of hearings on the safety and well-being of young people online. This is a critically important topic, as you said in your opening statement, and it's something that we think about and work on every day at Instagram. The internet has changed how we all communicate. It's changed how we express ourselves. It's changed how we stay connected to the people that we care about. It's also changed what it's like to be a teenager. Teenagers have always spent time with their friends, developed new interests, and explored their identities. Today, they're doing those things on platforms like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Snapchat. I firmly believe that Instagram and that the internet more broadly can be a positive force in young people's lives. I'm inspired every day by teens on Instagram, and I'm proud that our platform is a place where they can spend time with the people that they care about, where they can start incredible movements, where they can find new interests, where they can even turn a passion into a business. I also know that sometimes young people can come to Instagram dealing with difficult things in their lives. I believe that Instagram can help in those critical moments. It's one of the things that our research has shown, and to me, this is the most important work that we can do. Taking on complex issues like bullying and social comparison and making changes. Now, I recognize that many in this room have deep reservations about our company, but I want to assure you that we do have the same goal. We all want teens to be safe online. The internet isn't going away, and I believe there's important work that we can do together, industry and policymakers, to raise the standards across the internet to better serve and protect young people. But the reality is that keeping people safe is not just about any one company. An external survey just last month suggested that more teens are using TikTok and YouTube than Instagram. This is an industry-wide challenge and requires industry-wide solutions and industry-wide standards. Now, we have a specific proposal. We believe there should be an industry body that will determine the best practices when it comes to what I think are the three most important questions with regards to youth safety: how to verify age, how to build age-appropriate experiences, and how to build parental controls. The body should receive input from civil society, from parents, and from regulators. The standards need to be high, and the protections universal. And I believe that companies like ours should have to earn some of their Section 230 protections by adhering to those standards. And we've been calling for regulation for nearly 3 years now. And from where I sit, there's no area more important than youth safety. That said, I understand that developing policy takes time, so we're going to continue to push forward on the safety and well-being of young people online. On age verification, we're developing new technologies to address this industry-wide challenge. We're creating a menu of options to allow people to verify that they're old enough to use Instagram that extend beyond simply relying on an ID card. And we're building new technology to proactively find and remove accounts belonging to those under the age of 13. We're also using technology to understand if people are above or below the age of 18 so that we can create a more age-appropriate version of Instagram for them. For example, adults can no longer message people under the age of 18 that don't follow them. And as of this week, we announced that people can no longer tag or mention teens that don't follow them as well. We also provide tools for parents. Parents and guardians know what's best for their teens. And we're launching Instagram's first set of parental controls in March of next year, allowing them to see how much time their teens spend on Instagram and to set time limits. We'll also give teens a new option to notify their parents if they report someone, giving their parents an opportunity to talk about it with them. As a father of 3, I care a great deal about creating an online world that is safe for my children and that allows them to benefit from all the amazing things the internet has to offer. As the head of Instagram, I recognize the gravity of my role in making this happen, not only for my kids, but for generations to come. I'm hopeful that we can work together to reach that goal. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Massari. I'll take the first round of questions. Again, we're going to do 5-minute rounds. Just a short while ago, at our last hearing, TikTok, Snapchat, and YouTube sat at that table, and they all committed to making internal research algorithms and data sets about their effect on children and teens available to independent researchers. Will you commit to doing the same?
Senator, we believe it's important to be transparent both about ranking and algorithms and about data for research. I can commit to you today that we will provide meaningful access to data so that third-party researchers can design their own studies and make their own conclusions about the effects of well-being on young people. And on ranking, I can commit to do all I can to explain how ranking works and to find other ways for us to be transparent about algorithms.
Will you support a legal requirement that independent overseers and researchers not only have access to the data sets, but also check the way algorithms are driving content and recommend changes that you will adopt?
Senator, I'd be happy to have my office work with you on that. I believe that direction is an important one. We do a number of things in this area already. We provide information every month on the effects of our algorithms on removing problematic content from our systems.
Will you commit to a legal requirement that the access be provided and that an independent, separately appointed and separately funded body, not an industry body, as you've suggested, but an independent overseer and researcher have that access?
Senator, on the specifics of how the body works, I'm not a legal expert, but yes, I think there should be requirements and standards for how companies like ours are transparent about both data and algorithms.
Because an industry body is not government regulation that Mark Zuckerberg or others at Facebook and elsewhere have called for. An industry body setting standards is not the same as an independent one. Let me ask you, shouldn't children and parents have the right to report dangerous material and abuse and get a response, get some action? Because we've heard harrowing stories from parents who tried to report and have heard no response. My office made a report and got no response until CNN made the report to press relations. Shouldn't there be an obligation that Instagram will respond?
Senator, yes, I believe we try and respond to all reports, and if we ever fail to do so, that is a mistake that we should correct.
Instagram is addictive. That's the view that has been repeated again and again and again by people who are expert in this field. Parents know it, and for teens who see Instagram's algorithms encouraging, for example, eating disorders, they find it almost impossible to stop. The UK code restricts Instagram's use of addictive design, legally restricts its use of addictive design. Shouldn't we have a similar rule in the United States?
Senator, respectfully, I don't believe the research suggests that our products are addictive. Research actually shows that on 11 of 12 difficult issues that teens face, teens are struggling, said Instagram helps more than harms. Now, we always care about how people feel about their experiences on our platform, and it's my responsibility as the head of Instagram to do everything I can to help keep people safe, and we're going to continue to do so.
We can debate the meaning of the word addictive, but the fact is that teens who go to the platform find it difficult, maybe sometimes impossible, to stop. And part of the reason is that more content is driven to them to keep them on the site, to aggravate the emotions that are so seductive and ultimately addictive. The UK recognizes it by imposing that design restriction. The same ought to be done in the United States. Let me ask you, will you commit to make the pause on Instagram Kids permanent? In other words, stop developing a site for an app for children under 13.
Senator, the idea of building a version of Instagram for 10 to 12-year-olds was trying to solve a problem. The idea being that we know that 10 to 12-year-olds are online, they want to use platforms like Instagram, and it's difficult for companies like ours to verify age for those that are so young they don't yet have an ID. The hope was to always, or the plan was to always make sure that no child between 10 and 12 had access to any version of Instagram, even one that was designed for them, without their parents' consent. And so what I can commit to today is that no child between the ages of 10 and 12, should we ever manage to build Instagram for 10 to 12-year-olds, will have access to that without their explicit parental consent.
I have more questions. My time has expired. I thank you for answering my questions, Ms. Mazzari. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staying on Instagram Kids for a moment, I know you were doing research into 8-year-olds and pulling together data on 8-year-olds, and I